All right, good morning. Thank you for joining us for our third career panel. Today we are focusing on the cluster of arts, AV technology, and communication, and we have 5 professionals with us. So thank you all so very much, first of all, for taking time out of your busy day to be here with us and answer questions and to talk to our students. Let's start with some introductions. Just kind of say your name, where you work, and what your role is there. So we will start with Kane.
Hi, my name's Kane Ford. I work at Chico's here in sunny Southwest Florida. We are a women's fashion apparel retailer. We're a pretty big company. I am a senior experience designer there. So my role touches on a lot of arts and design work, but also psychology and human-computer interaction. And yeah, it's a very interesting job.
Awesome. Jason Andrews, would you like to go next?
Oh, absolutely. I work at Priority Marketing. I'm I guess my title there is probably video producer, videographer, but I do a lot of motion graphics work. I've do work as a DP and then also a shooter, and then a lot of editing as well. So.
All right, thank you. Thanks for joining us today. And then let's go with Adam.
I'm Adam Wright. I am a multimedia communication specialist at the School District of Lee County. Primarily a videographer and social media content creator. Do a lot of video work, video editing. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. And AV support for school board meetings and other events at the school district.
Thank you. Emily?
Hi guys, I am Emily Emrick. I have the same title as Adam Wright. I am a multimedia communication specialist. I am in charge of editing, graphics, AV troubleshooting, shooting video, and social media for the district.
Thank you. And Jason Sill.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Jason Sill, coordinator of multimedia communications for the School District of Lee County. So I work with Adam and Emily, and we produce all of the video content that you see in the school board meetings, and we produce stories and cover our school board meetings. So anything video related that you might see on our YouTube channel or Facebook, social media, our 2 cable channels, that's what we produce and oversee.
Awesome, thank you. So let's start with kind of your backgrounds, your stories, how you got into what you're doing now. Did you know growing up that this is the career field you wanted to go into, or is this something that through your experiences, you just kind of ended up here? So let's start with Jason Andrews.
I'm unmuted. I was into, I did music production for a long time. I used to work for Warner Music. I was a mix engineer there and a producer and a writer. So I did that. And I was always into kind of design and creative stuff, but more from an audio kind of side of things. And then maybe about 8 years ago, I transitioned over to doing music videos and commercials and stuff like that. And I'm entirely self-taught. I didn't go to school for this, you know. I just kind of found my way onto sets and found my way to people who could teach me things. And yeah, so it's kind of it's a unconventional path maybe, but I do work with a lot of people that kind of have similar kind of winding roads, you know, because the landscape's always changing, the technology is always changing. So you can't ever really say with great certainty where you're going to go, where you're going to end up, you know.
Right, I think that's a very important point for students to remember, that you can change your path based upon your experiences and what you find that you like or don't like, or what you're passionate about or not passionate about. And it's okay for that to change throughout your life. Kane, let's go to you next.
Yeah, so I got my start a while ago. My role in my industry is very interesting because you can almost think of it as web design and digital communication, but it's so much more than that. It's at the end of the day, it's all about helping people do things easier, communicating with them and, you know, more clearly. So experience design touches on, you know, everything from video games to websites, anything that you're interacting with technology. And that's been a passion of mine since I was young. And so, I've been doing what I do for, a little over 20 years now at this point. And yeah, I mean, I went to school. I actually worked at Florida Southwestern back when it was Edison, and that's where I got my start. Moved up to Atlanta, lived up there for a decade. I kind of, am also self-taught because I left school early and pursued a career and didn't look back. I would love to go back to school one day, but it's completely not necessary for my industry. And yeah, I mean, I've been laser focused on what I do, and I've held other jobs here and there as needed, but for the most part, 99% of everything I've done has been in the same industry for a while now. So
Awesome. Thank you. Emily.
My start, I guess, started in high school. I was in classes in digital imaging and photography. That's kind of where my interest started, but I didn't go to college for that. I went for something completely different, global studies. So I'm kind of like Jason and Kane in the sense of self-taught, just always testing myself on Photoshop or Illustrator or Premiere, and just taught myself through that. And then I got an internship in college with a hockey team up in Massachusetts. And that's actually what brought me down here. Is I worked for the hockey team, the Florida Everblades at Germain Arena. So I started in sports, and then I met Jason Sill, my boss, Adam, the Everblades, and he recruited me and brought me to the district, and education's now a newfound passion.
Awesome. Adam.
So my background is in journalism. So I'm an example of somebody who's not currently working in the field that they originally started in. I studied broadcast journalism at the University of Florida. I wanted to work in television news, and I did. I was a general assignment TV news reporter for 5 years after college. I worked in a small market in Texas, and then I worked at Wink News here in Fort Myers for 3 years as a general news field reporter, and sometimes fill in news anchor on the weekends and stuff. And, did that for 5 years, kind of realized that it wasn't the thing that I was most passionate about. I would say I've always been passionate about storytelling, and I've always been comfortable in front of the camera. So the job I have now at the school district was a pretty easy transition, because I still do a lot of the same things that I learned as a journalist, to gather information and write scripts and put stories together, and video editing and videography. So I'm really enjoying my current role, but I still learned a lot as in those 5 years I was working in TV.
Thank you. I think it's something to keep in mind, students, that all of these professionals so far have started somewhere different and have ended up where they are now. So like we said before, it's totally okay to change your mind throughout this whole process. Jason Sill.
Yeah, so for me, the passion really started with my dad. He had a home video camera, and this was back in the 1980s and probably early 90s. And so I used to take the camera around the house and love to be in front of the camera and make little videos for myself. And so that's really where the passion started. Pursued a degree in broadcast journalism at Ball State University. From there, I started my career at a really small TV station in Lafayette, Indiana. I was a sports reporter, photojournalist, worked there for a year. Found myself coming back down to Southwest Florida. I started at Wink TV down here as a photojournalist, spent a couple of years there, and got to really get into more of the photojournalist side of things, and videography and editing. Learned some great lighting techniques, and we set up a lot of live shots and got to do a lot of stories around the state of Florida. But then I transitioned. It wasn't the seat on the bus that I wanted, and so came to the school district about 12 years ago. And we've seen this department continue to grow, along with social media and storytelling, and we have an amazing team now.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
The next question kind of follows into that. So you all shared a little bit of how you grew up and where you started It's like, as far as college and school and what you were passionate about, what sorts of technical skills have you needed over the years to do the position that you're in now? If a student, what advice would you give a student? What kind of skills would you have them study and get really good at if they wanted to go into your field? Let's start with Adam.
I would say probably more than anything, the most valuable skill that I have is just kind of blanket communication skills. So my degree is technically in telecommunications, so that's more broadcast journalism oriented. But I think just knowing how to communicate effectively with your audience or with your coworkers, your team members, I had to kind of come out of my shell a little bit, getting in front of the camera and being a news reporter. But if you learn those base communication skills, those translate into almost any field. More technical things, get comfortable with technology, cameras, software. And for me, I also think that this goes under communication as well, but I think grammar is really important for what I do, especially if you get into social media content creation, like if you're posting a lot on social media, something that I'm kind of a grammar nerd. So I often notice when there are grammar mistakes in posts online, and that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. And a lot of other people notice that too. And if you don't have those grammar skills down, it kind of decreases your credibility a little bit with your audience, because a lot of people will pick up on that. So I think grammar is important, and communication, and it depends on what specific field you go into, but also, those technological and software skills as well.
Kane, would you like to answer the same question?
I agree completely in regards to communication. Communication is a huge thing. So my job is to help communicate. I work in retail currently. So I have to be able to communicate effectively with customers and make sure they understand what it is that they're doing. But also, I work with a lot of cross-functional partners throughout a company who may be less technical, maybe more technical. So being able to communicate effectively between teams and between people is hugely important. And I know that's kind of a soft skill, but in terms of technical skills, having a strong background in visual communication, web design, if that's the route that you choose to go, there's a whole host of tools that go along with that, like Photoshop and Sketch and Figma and really it depends on where in the industry that you want to work, but there's, it's a very technical field. So learning software is a huge thing for sure. There's also a ton of psychology though. So understanding Gestalt principles and things like that, and really getting your visual communication down, that's hugely important, because our job is to make people happy while they're doing things. And when people get confused when they're trying to buy a TV on Best Buy's website, that's not a pleasant experience. So learning how to streamline and quickly provide information and things like that, learning those design principles are a huge thing as well.
Awesome. And Jason Andrews, do you want to take that question as well?
Yeah, I think Kane and Adam points are really excellent. I think being likable and being fun to work with is good. If you're really good at what you do, but people don't feel good around you, and you're kind of, I know when I was in my teens, in my 20s, I was focused on skills a lot, and it was very fastidious, and I was like learning software and stuff like that, but I was kind of a solo kind of guy. And I think if you can work well with others, that really goes a long way. People value that as much as your technical expertise in some fields. But I would say being diverse, being able to, if you're a videographer, also understand principles of animation, because you might be doing motion graphics and things need to move a certain way so that it looks appealing. Understanding all the stuff around your focus is most important for what I do, because I never just shoot video. I'll find myself, directing and coaching and doing animated explainer videos. So I need to understand character rigging and After Effects and stuff like that. So yeah, just I would say being a clear communicator and taking your work home with you. Don't be a clock puncher. You know, when everybody else is watching Netflix, read tutorials, watch YouTube videos, learn things. You know, always be learning. That's the most important, because now you're competing with everyone. You're competing with the whole world. So be good at what you do, and be like Kane said earlier, be laser focused. You know, get it done. Learn the stuff you need to learn to really compete, because a lot of people want these jobs. You know.
Awesome. Yes, very good points. Thank you so much for that. I know some of you shared your degrees and certifications, but I just want to go around one more time to make sure we have a couple new students that have joined. Emily, can you share what your degrees and certifications are?
So my degree is actually in something completely different than what I actually do now. I have a bachelor's in arts in global studies and cultural affairs, but it doesn't really have to do with my job. I've done a lot of assessments on LinkedIn, just making certain that my skills are up to that level of my peers. I don't necessarily have any Adobe certifications, but I do know a lot of our high schools offer Microsoft and Adobe certifications. So make certain you get with your teachers and your tech academies and see if you have that opportunity available for you.
Thanks for that plug, Emily. Jason Sill, do you want to share with us your certifications?
Sure. So my degree is in broadcast journalism from Ball State University, but I also want to point out that we work with a pretty good group of student interns here at the school district. Many of them have left our intern program to work in our local TV stations. So you don't necessarily have to have a college degree if you want to work in the field of video production and film. Although you could pursue those, it's not always necessary. You can run cameras. There are opportunities for editors in many of these smaller markets. So I just want to encourage students to not be discouraged. If the college path is not for you, that's okay. If you still want to get into the industry, pursue some of those certifications at your school and technical colleges, and continue to pursue your dreams if that's what you want to work into.
Thank you. Kane.
So I went to school, and as I said before, I basically left early to go pursue a career in the corporate world. And I started out at Florida Southwestern, which back then was Edison. When I moved to Atlanta, I attempted to finish, my advanced degrees at Georgia Tech. It was incredibly difficult to balance school life and working a full-time job. And I just kind of abandoned school because I was kind of already going down the path that I wanted to go down. I was fortunate enough to get started doing this long enough ago that, I haven't really needed a degree. However, with what we do, businesses are becoming more and more aware every day about the importance of experience design and communication with customers and everything. So there are plenty of schools out there that offer degree programs. There's also a lot of boot camps. So you could take a short course, for a month or 6 months and get a head start in the industry. We do have an internship program at Chico's. I actually lead mine for the technology department. It's not so much high schoolers. We do occasionally hire high schoolers in as interns. So there is an opportunity. You do have to have a decent amount of knowledge or experience, not professionally, but just kind of have that passion there, be working on your own projects on your own time. I completely agree with the sentiment. When you go home at night, don't sit there and watch TV. If you do, like, have your laptop in your lap and continue read articles, self-educate, because that's going to get you into internships faster. That's going to get you into jobs faster. The more you can learn and the faster you can learn it, the better. So degrees aren't completely needed. We also have a huge internship program, partnership with Florida Gulf Coast. So we get a lot of interns from there with their senior capstone projects and everything. So I help the students go through their final semester. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's degrees not completely necessary. It does help, but there are opportunities there if you don't have a degree. So
Definitely. Thank you. Adam.
So my degree is in telecommunications from the University of Florida. I don't have any certifications in Adobe, like in Premiere or Photoshop, but those are on my to-do list. And I did get my remote pilot certification as well, which is the certification you need to fly drones commercially.
Awesome.
That's it.
Awesome. Thank you. And Jason.
Kind of like Kane, I left school. I started working at a recording studio, and I left school early and never went back. And similar to Kane, I'm kind of in the position now where I'm pretty comfortable, and I have a cinematography reel, a DP reel, and I have things that kind of functionally take the place of a degree, meaning that if when I applied for this job, they were like, well, what are your qualifications? And I said, well, look at this. I made all this, you know, and that kind of functions as a degree. Sometimes that's going to be a lot better than a degree. It really depends on the field you're going into, but in the work of video, it's a creative endeavor. And I think people want to see materially what it is you can do, you know, not like where you spent your money or how long you sat somewhere. And I would say though, if school helps you create that reel, or if school helps you create whatever that thing is that is going to get you a job, that's going to be just as powerful as that's a great reason to go to school. And that is going to be just as powerful as degree. Oftentimes, you know, some of my favorite directors like Quentin Tarantino and Wes Anderson, you know, they went to school for Wes Anderson went to school for like philosophy or something, and Tarantino worked at a video store. So, you know, there's options out there for you if you want to spend the money you would spend on college on like a C200 and just do it. You know, there's a path there as well, to be sure.
Awesome. Such good points for students to keep in mind. You don't necessarily need that traditional college degree. There's other pathways that you can take and still end up being very successful, obviously, as you see with our panelists here. One thing that was also mentioned, portfolios. That's something that's very powerful, especially in this career field. So students, when you're creating things, save them, keep them, start a portfolio now. The other thing, I know Emily touched a little bit on LinkedIn. So can you share, we'll start with Emily since you mentioned it, just the power of kind of that networking and having a profile on a business website like LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn allows you to connect with your fellow professionals and kind of see what they're working on and what is new and upcoming in your field. So it really allows you to find those connections and kind of see where you're at in your field with your, I guess, fellow professionals. And you can also do LinkedIn assessments. This allows you to test yourself against others in your field to see where you're at with your knowledge of Adobe and Microsoft and web design and all that. So they have a bunch of assessments. You can upload your portfolio, like Kelly said, so make certain to save all your reels because you have space to upload that on your LinkedIn. It breaks everything down so you can add your skills. You can get your skills endorsed by fellow professionals, and that you can also get recommendations on your LinkedIn from fellow professionals. So it's really that social media platform for professionals starting out in their field or already into their career. So
Thank you. Does anyone else want to touch on professional social media?
I do have one comment. In terms of LinkedIn, yes, amazing, you know, resource. Definitely, you know, everyone should have a LinkedIn if they're looking for, you know, starting their career or whatever. But LinkedIn also has a lot of groups, which can be an amazing learning experience. So if you're into video or you're into design or whatever, go into LinkedIn and find groups that are you know, based on whatever it is that you're looking to do. And so you get two opportunities that way. One, you get to learn from other people, which is a huge thing because you get to engage in conversations with people all over the world that normally you wouldn't. So you're learning all these new ideas and concepts. But two, with your portfolio, you're able to share that portfolio out and get feedback from people who are already doing that work. And a huge part of having a portfolio isn't being able to just say, hey, look what I did. You need to be able to explain your thought process, why you did what you did, how you did it, and really speak to that portfolio. And so being able to take, passion projects and little side things that you're working on into LinkedIn, into these groups and saying, hey, give me feedback on this. What do you think? And, really learning how to do a better job is a huge, huge win, coming out of LinkedIn. It's a great resource. It really is.
Thank you. Anyone else want to touch on professional social media? Adam?
I was just going to say, get on Indeed too, create an Indeed profile, make sure that your resume is always up to date. And, the great thing about Indeed is you can just plug in, what type of field or industry that you're interested in, and then, put in like a geographical area that you're interested in working in, and then it will show you all the current job listings that are available in that area. And I would just recommend, apply to as many as you can, because the worst thing that can happen is you just don't get it, or an interview. You either don't get an interview, or you do get an interview and you might not get the job, but then you'll get the interview experience, and that's invaluable as well. So just apply to as many jobs that you're interested in as possible, and maybe you'll get one, maybe you won't, but eventually you probably will, and you'll get some good experience as well.
Awesome. Thank you. I want to make sure that we open it up to the students. So do any of the students have any questions? Teachers, feel free to unmute. Students, unmute. No? Okay. Well, be thinking of your questions, because students, I'm going to give you another chance here in a few minutes. In the meantime, let's go through, what does a day look like for you? Like a typical day, and I know in this field, it's probably very different from day to day, but just give us an example of what your day would look like from morning until you get off work. So let's start with Jason Sill.
Yeah, so our day is always changing. We're a pretty large district, 92,000 students, 11,000 employees. So we're the largest employer in Lee County. And so there are so many stories that are happening every single day that we want to get out to and showcase to our public. Along with that, we also, like last night, we had school board meetings. So our day started at 8 a.m. and we got done around 7:30 last night because we had some school board meetings. That doesn't happens, a few times a month where we have to stay late, but and sometimes we just need to help with some AV setup. There are meetings that we need to record and cover, along with some of the fun stories we get to do. But every day is different. There's always incredible stories that are out there for us to highlight and share. So it's not as fast paced as a newsroom, but we definitely are always working, and we like to have fun with what we do. And I think that's really important. Our culture and our work environment is we're going to work hard, but we also have a lot of fun and create that synergy and creativity every single day.
Thank you. Let's go to Jason Andrews.
Like Jason said, every day is different. Every day is, you might be flying drones one day, then the next day you might be shooting a live event or something like that. There's a lot of editing. Where I work, it's an agency, so it's very fast paced, down to the hour. You're accountable for your time. So if you're the kind of person who likes to sit around and be like color grading something for 30 minutes, to 30 minutes tops on a color grade, as to where when I've done things in the past, I'd spend a day on, making something look a certain way. So we work fast. We do high quality work fast. So it's very, it's intense. It's almost newsroom level sometimes. My mom used to work in master control, so I grew up around that. And it's intense here, but we have a lot of fun. And you're going to be doing something different every day if you work for an agency, and you get a lot of experience seeing how the whole machine works. So it's really cool. I'm really thankful for this job. It's never boring. It's never boring.
Awesome. And Kane.
Yeah, I completely get where Jason's coming from, having worked in agency agencies in the past. It's very fast paced. I work corporate now. It's a little bit slower. I have lots of meetings. We're fully remote now, so most of them are Zoom meetings. Not so much face to face these days, but yeah, lots of meetings and lots of creative brainstorming. We get lots of people from different industries all in a room and say, look, we want to accomplish this task, and everyone provides feedback, everyone provides ideas, we work through problems. At the end of the day, that's really what we're doing is creative problem solving, which makes it so fun. So lots of meetings, usually stacked up in the mornings for the most part, and then I try to block out desk time on my calendar where I can actually work on projects. So it's a good mix of interacting with humans and then interacting with my computer.
Awesome, thank you. Mr. Shell said that his students have a couple questions, so I'm going to open the floor to them.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Our first question, well, there's two of them from students. I'm just going to say them because it'll go faster that way. The first is, I have a young man who wants to be an actor. Do they have any, because they have some film experience, what would be their advice to start his path into acting? That would be the first question. The second one, I have a young man who wants to be a filmmaker in here. And how would he start his path? He really enjoys script writing right now, and we're sitting in a 3D animation class. And a lot of the kids also want to do something with video one day, and possibly be filmmakers, a few of them. So what would their advice be at this age to start putting together maybe a film reel, or give them some advice at their age what they could be doing?
All right, who would like to take these questions?
I can maybe speak to some of that. I would say for the gentleman or the lady, for whoever it is that wanted to get into acting, I would say study the grades and get an agent when you feel like you're ready, because there's agencies everywhere, and agencies will put you on sets with other actors, and you can see how far you've come, you can see how good you are, which is really important. And it'll get you gigs as well. We go through an agency in Tampa generally called Ben's Models, and they're great, and we work with a ton of great actors, and people need actors right now because people need video. So actors, it's a good time to be an actor. Our guys, I think that the guys we paid for, I think they made about $1,500 each that day when we paid for them. So if your craft is good, and you kind of niche down and you do good work, I think you can make a great living in Florida. You can do great in Florida because they're shooting video in Florida. So that's how I feel about the acting. What was the other question? It was more general about getting into filmmaking.
Right. What would be your suggestion for a young man who he really enjoys script writing right now, and also he wants to start filmmaking? How would he get started, and what would you suggest? Should he get a mentor?
I think that's great, even if it's a virtual mentor. Even if he finds a YouTuber, there's a guy on YouTube who he makes films, and he uses a Canon T2i, which is like a DSLR. It was my first camera that I tried doing video work with, and it's a little rinky-dink camera. You can get it for $150 and then get a kit lens, because if you have something where you can frame up shots and make your own films, I think the best way to learn is to do. And script writing is really important, because I think there are a lot of filmmakers, people that want to be filmmakers, that shoot things that look, cinematic, but there's no plot, there's no script, there's nothing compelling about it. So I think if you have the tools to make a student film, you don't need much. You don't need like the newest Blackmagic Cinema camera 6K or the Ursa 12. You don't need that stuff. There's this guy, and if I think of his name, I'm just gonna type it in the chat. But he makes amazing, beautiful films with a Canon T2i. It's like DSLR video shooter, something like that. He's a young guy and he's just so talented because, I buy all this equipment and you think you need this stuff to make good art, but more often than not, you really don't. So I would say, yeah, get the camera and then work with people, like-minded people that are motivated to do creative things, and just get out there and do it, because the equipment's not holding you back. You could make something really cool for, I don't know, the price of a camera and a little Zoom recorder for audio. It's you can do it. You can do it with what you have, however modest it is.
I'd just like to jump in here. I think Jason hit the nail on the head. Just create. I just this weekend saw a commercial for the Apple iPhone 12, and the whole commercial centers around make movies like the professionals do. Those phones can shoot probably better quality than some of the professional cameras that we have. And I think people get so caught up, and I think students especially, we get so caught up in the technical aspect of, I've got to have this, fancy camera to make compelling video. And a lot of times that's just not the case. I think if you have a passion for storytelling and like your student is really into scripting, like Jason said, the stories that have a beginning, middle, and end, if you tell compelling content, sometimes the technical stuff can be forgiven. I always use the example, and it's a little bit different, but America's Funniest Home Videos was one of the longest running shows on cable. If you look at the quality, it's not always that great. But it's the storytelling part of it that keeps people interested, keeps them laughing. You're creating that emotional connection. So don't get caught up in all the technical. I've got to have the best lighting, the best camera gear. Your phone can do a lot of amazing things, but just start creating, start doing. Same thing with the acting. If you all have so many advantages with social media, and you have that ability to sort of create that brand of who you are. We were talking about LinkedIn and creating sort of that brand of. I think it's really important for this generation to understand that your brand starts as soon as you log into social media, as soon as you create some of that social media. Before, you might just send off a demo reel of something like that, but now agencies are able to find more information about you, who you are as a person, other interests that you might have. So the more you can put content out there, the better.
I have a couple really quick tips for the person that was interested in screenwriting. Not only write as much as you can, but a lot of people don't think about reading as much as you can. Read scripts, read the movie scripts of the films that you really enjoy. There's a lot of scripts you can find for free online. So read as much as you can to get a feel for how to write a screenplay. And then also there's a really good YouTube channel called Film Courage that I've watched a lot of videos on, and it's they interview a lot of screenwriters, and there's a lot of really great advice and tips that those screenwriters working in Hollywood give about what makes an effective screenplay and what doesn't make an effective screenplay. So that's Film Courage, a really helpful YouTube channel.
And I have to put in a plug for our Lee County Student Film and Television Awards. Every year, our department hosts a film festival for you students. So it's elementary through high school. We usually get over 1,000 students that participate and lots of submissions. So for you actors and you filmmakers out there, get together amongst your class and make a film and submit it and see how you do. Our judges provide constructive feedback. We get professionals in the area to judge your films. So put something together and you'll get that feedback for free, and it's something you can add to your portfolio. So we will be sending out that information probably closer to winter break. So Mr. Shell, keep an eye out for that because we'll be forwarding that to you. So.
Awesome. Thank you for mentioning that, Emily. One thing that came up was mentors. I think Jason Andrews, you discussed, finding a mentor, finding someone to learn from. Does anyone want to touch on that? Anyone have any experience with a mentor that you think really helped you in your career?
somebody going to take that? I don't feel like I don't have the best answer because I did kind of little pieces from everybody. I never had anybody say, hey kid, stick with me. I'm gonna make you a career in this industry. I never was tutored by anyone really. It was kind of, I feel like you just take little bits and pieces. If you see someone who is bringing home the bacon, if you see someone who is doing this for a living and they've made it a priority and they're not, they take it seriously, and it is actually materially paying their bills and feeding their family. Learn what you can from that person. Have the humility to ask questions, and if you don't know what something is, you don't just go yeah. Ask questions and humble yourself and learn when you're in the presence of somebody who seems to be in your eyes knowledgeable and successful and is doing this in a way that you admire, and sometimes that's going to be online, especially if you're into motion graphics. Like I think Mr. Sill said something about there was a 3D animation course or something that your students were in. You're going to find a lot of great animators and a lot of great motion graphics artists on YouTube. Those people might not necessarily live near you, and you can learn a lot from them online, just like this, looking at their project files and reverse engineering what they do. I think, you can be mentored by people all over the world these days. It's a really cool time, in that aspect. It's never been possible before to learn so easily from people everywhere.
Thank you. Mr. Shell, you said you have a couple more questions.
The first one would be if any of you guys would be willing to mentor. It's our goal in what we do this year. We're going to try to set up a mentor for every one of my students, which there's about 65 in one program and about 20 in another program. But if anybody's willing to mentor a kid for 15 minutes a month, would you just let Kelly know? And then maybe I'll hook you up. Just Kelly, you be the conduit for that. And they can email and say, I'm willing to have a 15-minute meeting with a kid once a month. The gentleman who spoke on, humbling yourself and asking questions. That's the problem sometimes with the kids, is that they don't know the right questions really to ask unless maybe somebody in that particular field, because a lot of them are being exposed to some of these careers they never thought of. You would be shocked to know that a lot of these kids just want to they hear about careers, doctors, lawyers. They don't know what some of you guys are doing. They've never even heard of some of your careers. And so if you're willing to give us that 10, 15 minutes a month, let Kelly know, and we'd love to hook you up. The second question from that boy who wants to be an actor, he asked us, does anyone know, I'll rather have one of you guys answer the question, but of if he was to go to college for acting, is that a good thing? Or would you say just, do it, in high school and then see what you get, go to New York and just go on screenplays? Or do you think getting training in college would be a good idea? He wants to know what classes he should be taking and what programs in college.
So I'll take this one. I was a musical theater major my freshman year at Ball State University. I spent my entire freshman year taking acting classes, dancing classes, all of those things, because I thought that, Broadway would be something that I would want to pursue. Although the degree could be good and valuable in some aspects, I would suggest that if you want to pursue acting, performing, you might be better served by moving to New York or, places where you can get into auditions and audition and perform. That might be a little more valuable, I think, than the degree in acting. If you were going to maybe instruct theater or go into theater and more work behind the scenes and some of those things, maybe the degree might be a little more valuable. But for an acting perspective, I'd say just go for it. Get in auditions and try to go that route.
Thank you. Anyone else want to touch on that?
I would just add that, if you do take the leap and move to a big city. Try to get as many auditions as you can. Work a job to help pay the bills. But I would recommend like joining like an improv group or something. I took a couple improv classes in college, and they were really fun, and they really help loosen you up, get comfortable kind of being silly around other people. And I think that's important. If you're going to be an actor, you have to, just not care about looking silly in front of an audience. So I would recommend trying to find local improv groups to join.
Thank you. I did have one question come in through the chat that said, how did you guys get your first jobs in these fields? It's a very good question. Emily, do you want to start? How did you get your first job?
Sure. So at my college, I went to Assumption College in Worcester, Massachusetts. It's a small institution. We had a media center on our campus where a lot of our TV production programs were recorded, and we had a set there. I kind of walked in there one day and joined the AV club there. The director of media services kind of took me under his wing and offered me an internship with the Worcester Sharks hockey team in the AHL. So I did 2 years of hockey with him, and then that kind of segued my job down here with the Everblades and Germain Arena. So honestly, I would say it's more about the internships and experiences and connections you make more so than your degree. So whatever internships you can get early on and the portfolio you build, and just getting that expertise and learning from your teachers and professionals that are already in the field is what's going to take you far. So
Thank you. Kane, how did you get your start? How did you get your first job?
I completely echo that sentiment. It's about who you know, and really it's about the passion that you put out. My first job was for a marketing agency here called Ellington Digital. They haven't been around for a while, but it was kind of word of mouth. I had a friend of a friend who, they did a lot of video and advertising work, but they also were trying to ramp up their, the digital half of the business, doing online advertising and things like that. And I was just really passionate about what I did, about, design work and everything. And that passion just kind of made me noticeable, I guess. And so I had a few people reach out and offer me jobs, while I was still in school. At the time, it was kind of a relatively new industry. The internet had only been around for a little while, so there weren't too many people doing it. These days it's a little bit harder, so it's that, even more important that you're networking and really, showing the world what you care about and why you care about it, because that translates into confidence, and people see you and they think, okay, well, this guy may not know everything, but he really cares about what he does. And that really helps you land that first job, I think, is not everyone's going to graduate high school, graduate college knowing everything, but being able to demonstrate that you want to know everything is a huge, it's a huge important step. So yeah, my first job was, basically taking catalogs and translating them into websites and making them easy to search. And then we had to take content from digital and put it into film and digital ads and everything else. So it was a lot of Photoshop work and things like that. And so the earlier you can master some of these technical skills, it really helps.
Great advice. Great advice. Anyone else want to share about your first job?
Well, so I totally agree with Kane and Emily that, connections are important. My experience was a little different because my first job, I, had zero connections with anybody that was there. So speaking specifically from a TV news perspective, so when I was in college, I did an internship at a local TV station, which was important, I think, on my resume. And, I also put together a highlight demo reel of my work that I did while I was in college. Back then I burned it to a DVD. So it's like a 5 or 10 minute long demo reel of my work, put it on a DVD and physically sent these copies off to, I think I originally sent it out to 20 or 30 TV stations across the country. There was a website that I used called tvjobs.com. You have to pay, I don't know, $30 for a year-long membership for that, I think, something like that. I don't know if people still use it or not. This is back in 2012. But so that website helped me find all the openings at TV stations across the country. I physically sent out my demo reel to them, and I think I got calls back from 2 or 3 stations. This took a couple months during the summer after I graduated, and I ended up moving to Beaumont, Texas for my first job at a small TV station after a one-time phone interview, or maybe a 2-round phone interview, something like that. So that's how I got my first job.
Teachers or students, any other questions? Mr. Shell? If not, I know one question that always comes up is pay scale. So I imagine this is a field where, it could be anywhere on the specific scale, but just thinking particularly about your job and what you do on a day-to-day basis, what's kind of the entry level, and then what is kind of the pinnacle as far as pay scale and what students can, think that they might be making one day. Let's start with Kane.
So entry level, it really depends on where you work. You make a little bit more in corporate life than you do in agency life. And for someone just starting out, you might start around $60,000, $70,000 a year. Depending on the path that you take, though, I'm in, a corporate job, so we have all of our roles are split into different levels. So we have, associate, digital product designers, and it goes all the way up to, a senior digital product designer too, which is what I am. You have design leads, you have managers, you have directors of whatever. So the corporate world really opens things up a lot more, just because there's typically a lot more people, so you need a lot more organization. So entry level, you probably start around 60, 70,000 a year. Once you start getting up to the director level, I mean, you're looking at $250,000 a year. Again, it really depends on where you work, the size of your company, depends on your skill set, how big your team is. I mean, there's a ton of variables. It's a very, very high paying job. So I'm fortunate to have found an industry that takes care of me. I got 5 kids, so more money that I can make, the better. But it's not hard to make good money right out of the gate. It's not like you start out at a very low amount and then have to gruelingly work your way up through the ranks for ever. You can start out making a really decent amount of money right off the bat. So it's a good career to get into for sure.
Thank you. Jason Andrews.
Kane kind of called it when I started at, as far as, because I'm at an agency right now, and when I started doing agency stuff, I started at 60 a year, which really, if you live within it's not a bad place to be. But the more you can do, there's a lot of room to grow. If all you can do is shoot video, then that is going to put a cap on what you can make. But if you can coordinate things at a higher level, if you can do design, if you can do JSON web animations, if you can do if you're an After Effects guy, the more you can do, the more money you can make, really, the more valuable you are, so yeah, you could definitely go for in-house positions. Kane is right. you do make more money with in-house positions. And then the ultimate gamble is going, doing your own business, which I've done before in the past, and probably in the future I'll probably find myself doing that at some point in time, because then you're totally in control, for better or for worse, but yeah, those are kind of the three paths that I see. There's in-house, there's agency, and then there's incorporating yourself if you want to do design work, video work, stuff like that. So yeah, it's riskier to go solo, but the reward is very high.
Thank you. And then Jason Sill, what about from a school district perspective, working in this field within a school district?
Well, I'm going to just be raw and honest. If you are pursuing TV news and you want to go into the journalism field, the local reporters are not making a lot of money, and especially if you're in a smaller market, you sort of have to work your way up in the market sizes, and you have to be willing. If it's, a lot of those folks are really passionate about the field. They're passionate about journalism. They like to be on camera, but much just like the acting field, the smaller theaters and venues you perform in, the lower the pay. So you have to be willing to jump markets. We're about a mid-sized market here in Lee County. So just something to keep in mind. I will say it is important that you keep in perspective that money sometimes should not always be the end goal. Consider work environment, consider sort of the work that you do. I am passionate about public sector work and public service industry. So if you're going to go into the public service realm or world, you may not make as much as far as the financial part is concerned, but you can make a good living, and so that's something that I just want to encourage everybody to keep in mind when you're considering that first job or a career. Is don't always think about the dollars, also think about some of the standard of the quality of life that you could have as well.
Very, very good points. Adam, I saw you.
Can I just make a couple quick points? Yeah. So jumping off of what Jason said. So for example, like my first job in TV news right out of college, I was making $24,000 a year in a small market. And then I came.
Oh, technology is wonderful.
I think we lost them.
Well, while Adam's frozen, I can talk about sports. Sports doesn't make much money either, to be honest. You have to work your way up, starting with minor leagues. You can get in. So I was a tech director, AV and creative services manager, and it sounds all good and fancy, but I only made $28,000, $30,000, but you can work your way up. I was minor league. Minor league does tend to pay less because they don't get the sponsorships and affiliations like the NHL does. So you can work your way up. That's all about building your portfolio, and the experiences you get will build your salary down the road. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I definitely want to make sure that we are respectful of your time. Just to wrap it up, does anyone have a piece of advice that you would tell your high school self? If you could go back to when you were in high school, what is something that you would tell yourself?
Make sure that you can take criticism. So you can't take criticism. If you think you're the man and you're the woman and you can't take criticism from anyone, you're not going to get better. So have the kind of heart and mind where you can self-evaluate and take criticism and kind of course correct as you go. That's important.
I would say it's not about the degree, it's about the experiences, like whatever internships you can take, whatever networking you can do. If you can go to workshops, if you can sign up for clubs at your schools and your colleges, whatever academies you can take at your high school currently, take them, because you can get certified, like I said before. And these are all things you can add to your resume. Continue filming, continue studying. Like Jason and Kane have pointed out, there are YouTube tutorials for about every single platform out there. So watch your tutorials and always be studying.
I have a quick plug. So I would tell the high school students watching today, if you are interested in advancing your career in filmmaking, television production, journalism, please have Mr. Shell reach out to me. We have an advanced student intern program where we are looking for students who want to pursue this. You would help be an extension and a part of our team, our communications team. You'll create content and stories for the school district, and we will share that content on our social media channel. Right now, we have 3 current student interns, but if it's something that you want to do and you want to pursue in college, I would advise you to reach out to us because we are, and we're also a paid internship. We pay our students once they're on board. So if it's something that you want to pursue, please take advantage of that.
Yeah, I would say to not focus exclusively on technical skills either. Make sure that you're working on your soft skills, because interpersonal skills, communication, emotional intelligence and things like that are going to be huge for you for your whole life, but especially in work, because anywhere that you work, you're going to be dealing with other people. So it's great to be awesome at what you do. Never stop creating, keep doing it, even if it's just passion projects and side work. But don't forget that, it's teams of people that typically make things happen. And so being able to function in a team is a hugely important thing.
Thank you. And
I would just say, don't be afraid to switch majors if you're not feeling what you're studying. Volunteer. A lot of high school students, they put in a lot of hours in volunteer work to boost their resume. And then I feel like a lot of people give up on that volunteer work when they, get in the college they want to get into. And I think you can make a lot of connections in volunteer agencies as well. And just to also echo what Jason Andrews said earlier is, really humble yourself. Don't expect to be crushing it right out of the gate after college. You might have to put in a lot of hard work, paying your dues your first several years after you graduate, and it can sometimes get you down, but just keep your eye on the prize. Always have goals that you're working towards.
awesome. Thank you all so very much for spending over an hour with us today and sharing your expertise and some of your experiences, and everything that you shared with our students today. Thank you for all of the advice you've given them. Students and teachers, the next Career Ed Talk is on November 18th. That's a Wednesday. It's every other Wednesday. This week was a little off because we had another event yesterday, but every other Wednesday at 9 a.m. So feel free to tune in to the same Zoom link that you used. And professionals, thank you so much. Have a great Thursday.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Kelly.
It was
Thank you,
nice
guys.
to meet you all.
Thank you, everyone.